Good evening, this is the Oscar expert here, and it's time for a review of Killers of the Flower Moon. Probably one of the most anticipated movies in recent memory. It is Martin Scorsese's 3.5-hour crime epic set in 1920s Oklahoma in the Osage Nation, where oil was discovered, so of course white people had to pour into town to get their hands on some of that wealth. And during this time, a series of murders were committed against the Osage people, and this story revolves around some of the characters most prominently involved in those murders. Leonardo DiCaprio is the lead character, Ernest. He's the niece of Robert De Niro, who is known as King, which basically describes his position in the town. DiCaprio marries Lily Gladstone's character, which entwines the wealth of their families, and the movie basically shows us beat by beat how these murders happened and how they were investigated, while keeping DiCaprio and Gladstone's relationship at the center. It is a really interesting case study of American history, greed, abuses of power, white supremacy, and the erasure of Native American culture and life. The subject matter is dire and disturbing, but Scorsese approaches it much like you, I guess, would expect Scorsese to approach any crime film. And as disturbing as it sometimes is, there is well-placed humor in here. For a 3.5-hour movie, it is remarkably brisk. I thought I would know when the movie was about to end by how tired I was feeling of it, but honestly, I could have kept going. The reason it's so long seems to be because Scorsese wants to take us through every single procedural detail. Who told who to do this? Who put the hit out on this person? These moments do feel the most like they are Scorsese going through the Scorsese motions, but it does always manage to come back to the central characters, and it is enjoyable throughout. The movie really soars through these character-driven moments, and there is a lot to chew on for these actors. Leonardo DiCaprio is excellent as Ernest. A lot of people are saying that this might be one of his best performances, and honestly, I felt the same way. He is just the biggest useful idiot, but DiCaprio plays him like he thinks that he's smart, which is what an actor must do when they're playing an idiot. There's also something really sincere about his character, even as he participates in these atrocities, either knowingly or unknowingly. The mystery of this character is how is he justifying this to himself? And in later scenes, his face sort of twists and mangles as he seems to struggle with those same questions. He's also really funny, and he has so many standout scenes it's hard to count. Then there's De Niro as DiCaprio's uncle, William Hale, a real piece of shit. Unlike DiCaprio's character, Hale knows exactly what he's doing at every turn, and it is disturbing to watch this character feel so assured and confident in his deeds. I would be surprised if De Niro doesn't become a supporting actor lock, if not one of the top contenders. It's a really huge role for him, I think. Then the third and final great performance in the movie is Lily Gladstone. Anyone who's seen her work before has been greatly anticipating this moment for her, and she absolutely delivers. But unlike her screen partner DiCaprio, she is extremely quiet and subtle, and that contrast between these characters really says a lot. There's one scene where Ernest is going on and blabbering and yelling and stuff, and she is mostly quiet during the whole scene. The scene may look like a one-sided conversation, but Lily Gladstone communicates so much in just smaller ways. Although I have to say I did want more from her character, and that's sort of at the root of my bigger issue with the movie. Some of the best and most interesting parts of the movie are when Scorsese puts us in the shoes of the Osage people, or lets them have their word. Every time we dip into that point of view, the movie ascends a little bit into something that Scorsese hasn't really done before, because a lot of the movie is sort of familiar Scorsese crime territory. He thankfully made sure that the Osage people have a voice in this film. You can read all about how he made that effort and actually worked closely with them, and that's why their parts in the movie have so much power. But I have to admit, I was itching for more of this perspective and for more of Lily Gladstone. This movie is over 210 minutes, and it makes sure to give every detail of the crimes that were committed on the side of the whites committing them. But it's clear to me that this story is at least equally about the Osage people. I'm not arguing that it should have been told from their perspective necessarily, although you could have made the movie that way, because I understand that Scorsese is fascinated with the mechanisms of white-collar crime. And that's what he does, that's what he's going to explore. And again, Osage people have a voice in this movie. Scorsese is willing to shift perspectives to them on occasion. But the fact that he's willing to do that, I'm kind of why not more of it? Why not more of the fear that was plaguing those people during this time, wondering if they will be picked off next? While the movie is interested in exploring both these things to some extent, I think it's more interested in how the crimes were pulled off than it is in how the victims of these crimes were affected by them. More balance would have made it a stronger story, at least to me. Doing more of what I think made it stand out from other Scorsese movies in the first place. Even in scenes with DiCaprio and Gladstone, I did feel like the editing was favoring DiCaprio's perspective a lot. When every scene is equally, if not more so, about Lily Gladstone, and this is an actress who, no matter what is going on in the scene, no matter who is talking, if you hold on her face, It's so powerful. And DiCaprio has plenty of moments where it holds on him during these conversations, but Gladstone is rarely afforded moments like that. In my brain, I was itching, like, just show her, like, what if we were hearing this whole conversation, but it was just focused on her face? Like, how powerful would that have been? And this isn't me having, like, some sort of criteria of, like, oh, well, every scene had better have equal focus. It was just what my brain was itching for. There are moments where a lot of information is being dumped that should be shocking to Molly, Lily Gladstone's character, but the film is more interested in Leonardo DiCaprio's reaction. There were many times where I felt frustrated with Molly's character, likely intentionally, with how she seemed ignorant to how the wolves, so to speak, might be closer to her than she thinks. But scene after scene, I'm kind of like, are we supposed to interpret this character as having this conflict? Is she wondering if the wolves are closer than she thinks? Or are we supposed to think that she's naive? And I feel like we were supposed to think that she was naive, but I don't know if Lily Gladstone was playing the character like that. There were a lot of times where I wanted to see more of what was going on with her internally. I can't really come away saying this movie is a masterpiece like other people are. To me, it's a highly interesting story, well worth telling, well worth picking apart, with amazing performances and some really well done scenes between these actors. But with the people who are declaring it a masterpiece, I sort of just wonder, like, what do you think the movie achieves that is so significant, or I guess unexpected? Without spoiling it, the ending does a thing, and a lot of people seem really into it, and they're just like, oh my god, Scorsese, I can't believe you just did that, buddy. And I'm kind of like, I don't know if I like that or not. Part of me wonders if, like, people are just kind of jumping to call everything he does brilliant, but I don't want to characterize other people's opinions that way. Now that we've covered most of my opinions, let's talk about awards. The movie has a 90 on Metacritic. It is absolutely getting nominated for Best Picture, Best Director, Best Screenplay, and probably like 12 awards total. I feel like DiCaprio, De Niro, and Gladstone have to be nominated for this movie, if not in contention to win in their respective categories. I'd be shocked if one of them missed. I know exactly what you're thinking too. You're thinking, what about Plemons? Folks, he's just not in it a ton. He's maybe in like 15, 20 minutes. He plays an FBI investigator, and he mostly plays him how you would expect Jesse Plemons to play him. I think Jesse Plemons is bringing his subtle sense of humor to the role in a way that I really enjoyed, but it's not really anything too unexpected from him. Some may clamor on and say, well, you said this about his performance in Power of the Dog, and he still got nominated for that. But I would say that I think he was a little bit more of a prominent and important character in that movie, and he did have a scene where he cried. You may also want to know about Brendan Fraser. He is really good in his 5 minutes of glory. There are a lot of really good smaller performances here, but I feel like those three, DiCaprio, De Niro, Gladstone, really stand head and shoulders above everybody else. The cinematography is very well done. Some of the landscapes look beautiful, and a lot of the darkly shaded interior lighting really stands out. It will likely be nominated for that. The editing is also great for the most part. The film flies by through the 3.5 hours, and there are great ways in which it divides and cuts up scenes in order to keep the pace up. That will also likely be nominated. Costumes were a huge standout. There's loads of them. That will be nominated 100%. Production design from Jack Fisk. I mean, this is a big budget Western set drama with massive outdoor sets and loads of interiors. There's actually a couple sets where Jack Fisk's more experimental tendencies come out, I think. The jail cell looked a little surreal, and then there was like one room that William Hale takes DiCaprio into to give him a talking to that looked like weirdly Lynchian. It will absolutely be nominated for that. The score from Robbie Robertson is also a highlight. There's a great use of upright bass in the movie, which gives the movie a quietly thumping tempo. It's more rock-oriented than classical, which works really well for a Scorsese movie. I do think that will probably be nominated too. I don't think the movie has to get sound, but maybe it could. Will the movie win any of these awards? Or is this another Fabelmans or Irishman situation? People are probably going to think of this as the frontrunner. I'm not going to say for sure that it will not win, but as of now, I'd probably take the position that this will be another Irishman. Maybe it can win director, maybe Gladstone can win. I feel like there's a huge push behind her, but I am kind of weary that a more showy performance could come out and start taking some of the major awards, even if Gladstone is sweeping critics groups. I would not rule out De Niro winning, but I feel like if there's a more exciting alternative, people will take that. With texts like Gangs of New York and The Irishman, I think it'll get a load of noms, but it might not win any. If there was one category that I think it could win the most, it might be costumes. So, you know, you can pencil it in for 12 nominations. I would give this movie an 8 out of 10. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. What crimes have you committed?